Hey there, you're listening to the EmpowerTech podcast with Ijari Savalos. This podcast is where we discuss all things tech and explore the growing ways in how we can leverage technology to lead smart, sustainable, and impactful lives. On this episode, Sue and I are going to jump into how we can thrive with technology and the harms to watch out for, changing our perspectives on tech at home for ourselves and our children. Sue Langley is the founder and CEO of Langley Group and the academic director of the Langley Group Institute, specialising in transforming organisations and their people through the science of human flourishing. Langley Group's bespoke programs are now delivered worldwide at all levels. Around the globe, Sue's innovative approach to unlocking human potential has garnered widespread recognition. Can't wait to bring Sue in. Let's get started. Sue, it's so exciting to have you here today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Look, let's get started. I'm really excited about our chat today. I'm really interested in how positive psychology has influenced technology innovation recently, but I also do want a bit of the history. So can we start there, Sue?
Well, I suppose a history of pos psych has probably been around for a long time, really, because any human, probably since we've been thinking, we have wanted to maximize our well-being. We've wanted to flourish and things like that. So whether we go back 2,500 years or whether we go back to 1998, when it was sort of officially coined, positive psychology, we've always been interested in human flourishing, I think. So formally, as a science, and positive psychology, some people misinterpret, but positive psychology is the scientific study of human flourishing. Basically, we're trying to study what it is that makes individuals, teams, organizations, communities flourish. And I think that's a pretty cool space to play in. I feel very lucky that I get to play in that space. And I suppose now, because positive psychology has expanded and explored so many different areas, we're now able to look at things like, flourishing with the microbiome, flourishing with genetics. How do we flourish in our environment? And obviously, technology is one of those components, whether we think about politics or education or health or whatever positive psychology can sort of touch on various areas of those, and technology would be one of them.
Great. Thank you, Sue. I want to ask a question around how you think we're going at the moment with our innovation in tech and thinking about human thriving. Like, how do you think we're going in that space? Are we still experimenting to a large degree? Is there spaces that are more mature than others? Like, what do you think?
Oh, look, there's definitely areas that are more mature than others. And I think it actually depends on if people really understand about human flourishing. Because if you look at some of what's being done in the tech space now around flourishing, we've got really good measures coming through now from country perspectives where we are using technology and big data to actually find out what makes one country happier, if you like, than another, but what are the components of what that country is doing. So technology as far as big data, technology as far as helping people measure and track, is really useful. If we think about the Sustainable Development Goals, a lot of technology development is sort of keeping some of those in mind, whether we're thinking about technology for processing clean drinking water or whether we're thinking about technology with regard to education. There is a lot of progress being made. If we think about technology in health, lots of progress being made. Artificial intelligence is far better at analysing scans to see how surgery has gone or if there's tumours or those sorts of things. So I think in some areas technology is working really well. Mm-hmm. In other areas, less so, because we don't put the positive psychology behind it. We think about, I've got this idea for a tech that I can make millions of dollars out of, and I'm not actually thinking about the impact on people's well-being. And I am not anti-tech at all. I'm very pro-tech. But I think obviously some of the things we get around social media and things like that is social media can be amazing. And there's some really great research that has indicated some positives of social media. Like if I am a member of a minority group whether it's because I've been diagnosed with a rare disorder. I can now connect with people around the world, whereas there might be nobody in my community who has that same disorder. So I feel isolated. But through social media, I can connect with other people and feel a sense of belonging and support and get information. Social media is really good for keeping track of relationships, of, people that don't see each other, families that are now spread around the world. So there are benefits, but unfortunately we've used technology sometimes with social media and some day-to-day tech, not necessarily to look after the well-being and enhance the well-being of people, but we've used it to, how do we make money? And I appreciate money is important, but at the detriment of well-being. And I think we can do both. I think we can use technology well to both make money and boost well-being if we think harder.
Thinking harder is the key. So I just want to unpack a couple of things that you've said there. One of the things that I notice with when we see that it's doing harm is that generally, and I am generalising here, we tend to see the harm in our more vulnerable first. Would that be fair?
Yep, absolutely. Because again, if you've got tools in your toolkit, so the way I think of human flourishing, or me as an individual, if I'm flourishing, flourishing doesn't mean adversity isn't coming at me. It means I have more tools in my toolkit than the adversity currently coming at me. So it's about tools in my toolkit. Now, sometimes the adversity is going to be big and bigger than the tools, and I will struggle and I will languish. Sometimes I've got more tools in my toolkit, and no matter what's coming at me, yep, I've got this, I can handle it. The challenge for us is if I don't have tools in my toolkit. So I'm very well aware that I can set my phone to a 15-minute window of social media and then it cuts me off, and I'm perfectly able to regulate my emotions not to then override that. Because it's a choice and I've got tools in my toolkit.
Yes.
But if I don't have tools in my toolkit, then often you'll find is it's too easy for the algorithms, the technology to encourage me. Now, I'm not saying I always resist, but if I don't have the tools in my toolkit, and that might be if I'm younger, I don't know how I'd go if I was now in my teens and faced with what I'm faced with, because my brain is going to be shaped based on the technology that I'm using. So I might never gain those self-regulation strategies if I'm constantly bombarded with things that are encouraging me to basically get sucked up into a particular environment. So I think it's about tools in the toolkit, but it's about, are we taking advantage of? And to your point, the most vulnerable are more likely to be picked, sort of to have that negative impact first, because they may have fewer tools. And when I'm saying tools, I'm thinking about my tools, but also the resources that might be around me to support me.
Yeah, I can totally see how some younger girls or boys that might be going through some stress at school, or not finding, really good friendships at school, might be turning to things like social media more often and more easily, given that they don't have those other tools, like you've mentioned, to be able to rely on when things aren't going great.
And I think, Jerry, the tools that I'm often thinking about are tools around emotions, because we don't really teach much of this stuff. And I was really saddened to read only last week that another boy had ended his life due to having a relationship with an artificial intelligence who he believed was, he didn't believe, but he felt connected to and felt he was in love with. And she didn't respond as he expected when he said how much he was struggling. And that he made that choice. But when you're a teenager, and I'm not saying all teenagers, but if you haven't been taught self-regulation strategies, if you don't know, and let's face it, all of us were very impulsive probably when we were teenagers. Yes. And we're like, oh, I'm having an emotion, let's go with it. But our prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop. And then if we haven't learned the tools and the strategies, or we haven't had good role models, it can be hard to put things in place. Like, and again, lots of people technology-wise, like I love the fact that my phone, I had it in black and white for about a year, because I know that the brain doesn't get as excited by black and white as it does with color. So just turn it to black and white, and it's not half as exciting to scroll through social media. So, there's tools you can use if we know what they are.
Yeah, and if we know how they're impacting us, right? Because that's the thing, like how we can't expect kids to know how those sorts of things are impacting them. And I think you've just brought up one of the examples again. I think it was the AI companion that was in the news with that young man. And I don't expect that he knew what was happening to him in terms of his emotions and what that was doing to him. He was just going with the flow, and he thought he had a connection there.
And I think to your point, Ajari, with your first sort of early question here, is often we don't know. We don't know the impact that certain technology can have. We aim for the positive, but then it might have various side effects. Same with drugs. One drug cures one thing, but it gives you a whole bunch of side effects. I suppose the thing for me as humans is once we do know, what are we doing about it?
Now, if I stay with the harms just for a moment, on a daily basis, what are the sorts of things that are harming us? We've talked about social media, so things like TikTok, scrolling endlessly on things like Facebook, YouTube Shorts, I think it is the short form that's quite, it's designed to be a little bit addictive, right? It's supposed to keep you engaged. What other things are impacting us, do you think, on a daily basis from a tech perspective that are probably more on the not so useful side?
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things that you've mentioned with regard to technology, whether it's social media aspects, is they are often designed to leave us feeling addicted, and they do it in theory a good way, because we get a reward from I've got 5 likes, I've got another 5 likes, or to your point, whether it's even binge watching Netflix or whatever is where our brain is getting hooked with the next thing. So whether it's YouTube Shorts, whether it's as much as TV and streaming, is your brain is being hooked by the next one. Now, if you think about television as an example, any TV series over the years, there's always a cliffhanger at the end of one episode to hook you into the next. Now, when things were 1 week apart, that didn't matter. So however much I wanted to see the next one, I couldn't. I had to wait till the following Friday in order to be able to watch it. So self-regulation didn't matter. I didn't need to self-regulate because it was regulated for me. Whereas now, I don't even have to wait the 10 seconds for it to say next episode coming. I can click play straight away and click it on in 3 seconds because I can't wait to see who got shot or whatever in the particular episode. And so I think, unfortunately, whether it's, as I say, your YouTube Shorts or things like that, we've got the systems aren't encouraging us to self-regulate. It's actually removing, or it's relying on our self-regulation, if you like, because if we don't have any, then we just keep scrolling, we go down rabbit holes.
Yes.
But if you think then about technology, obviously, a lot of the algorithms are designed to feed us what we want. And and this is not conspiracy if anybody thinks I'm being weird, but your phone is constantly listening to you. That's the point of Siri. She's there, or she or he is there to say, when you say, "Hi, Siri," they respond. And but your phone is constantly listening unless you turn it off. So therefore, if you and I have a conversation about something random like sustainable development goals that I just threw in there, chances are on my feed on something tomorrow, I'm going to get something come up around the sustainable development goals because my phone is listening to me. It's also tracking where I'm going. So I go in a shop that's got a particular theme, and then the next day I get something on that particular thing. And when you know that, it's kind of amusing. But when you don't know that, you're getting sucked into buying the next thing that comes up on your feed. And to your point, is feeding us things we look at and we pay attention to. So if I look at and pay attention to negative activities on social, I'm going to get fed with more of those. People often say to me, "Oh, my feed is so negative." I'm like, "Oh, wow, mine's not. Mine's awesome." Because I tend to, if I do look at something, I'm looking at positive news, I'm looking at Upworthy, I'm looking at the good stories. So I think for me, I kind of giggle sometimes when all of a sudden I get an advert for something that I know I was talking to somebody about the other day, or I just happened to see, because it makes me smile. I'm like, well, clearly the algorithms, they're all working hard to feed me stuff. But again, I can smile at it because I kind of know what's going on a bit. But I don't know everything, but I know some of what's going on behind the scenes.
And I'm assuming there's also an ability for you to be a bit more intentional, right, about how you're using your device as well, which will lead into some algorithms and out of others that you're not interested in.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing is I totally understand there's a whole industry designed to try and get me to do things that is going to earn somebody money. But I also recognize that a lot of the challenges we have is user error, as in how am I choosing to use it? So little things for me, like, as I say, I deliberately put a 15-minute on my social media. I look at it first thing. And when that 15, well, sometimes it doesn't even get to 15 minutes, but when I'm done, that's it. I'm done for the day. But that's me. I'm able to do that. If I think about notifications, I have a smartwatch. I have no notifications at all on there. I turn off most of my notifications on my phone unless it's to particular work related. So I don't even have Teams messages come up on my phone. So if somebody wants to get me, if they really want to get me, they either text me if it's urgent or they call me.
Yes.
Otherwise, you might have to wait 2 days before I get back to you because I might not be checking. But again, that's my choices. And I've been able to make some of those choices, like the phone to black and white and all of those sorts of things. I try and remove the bits of the technology I don't like so I can focus on the bits of the technology that I do like. But sometimes this is about resources again. I can either rely on my willpower, but that's going to run out at some point, or I can use the resources that are actually built into my phone to turn off the listening. I've got Siri turned off. I don't need them. So I turn off a lot of these things because they're not supporting my well-being.
No, I don't like how to do things. So I think I haven't turned her off though. I didn't realise that I should be doing that. So that's a really good.
Well, it's up to you. That's my choice. I turn it off because. Well, I also don't think she understands. Well, mine's a she. She doesn't understand me. Because the few times I have asked her a question, I get absolute rubbish back. So clearly my voice isn't very clear for them to listen. But I think to your point, often we don't know that. Most people don't know about the black and white. When I share that, it's like, oh, my goodness, you can do that. Or delete apps that you don't need. So I suppose use any technology, using it consciously is helpful. The same with anything, learning about it. To your point about you asked about other types of technology, there are some brilliant aspects of technology with regard to measuring health. So I love having things that measure health. But again, it can turn into a downside of all of a sudden we become so obsessed with, have I closed my rings? Have I counted calories? Am I getting the right sleep? And I used an Oura ring for a couple of years and I tracked my sleep, but I tried to learn from it. So each day, then I would sort of have a look and see, well, okay, what did I eat last night? Why did I not sleep as well? Was it I ate too late, too spicy, too much sugar? Did I go to bed? Did I eat too close to bedtime? And I learned from it. And then I removed the Oura ring because I've done the learning and I've been able to embed it. But I do see sometimes people almost then get obsessed with whatever they're tracking of it's dictating their life. So the question I always get people to think about is, with any technology, is it enhancing your well-being? There are very few people who, after an hour of scrolling through social media, if I say to you, how happy are you? You're going to be, oh, yeah, joyous. But if you've gone for a walk for an hour or chatted to a friend for an hour or just cooked a fabulous meal with you're probably going to go, yay, I love that.
I don't know if I'd say
so. Assess it. Yeah, track it, see what happens.
No, fabulous. Thank you, Sue. So I do want to ask you about the future in terms of what we should be expecting. And we did touch on the AI companion. Do you think we're really heading into wellbeing being delivered by robots?
A bit of a yes and no. And again, if I were to put my positive psychology head, so you probably know I have a keynote called The Future is Human, where I put positive psychology behind education and politics and media and health and every technology and everything, because I want people to think about, well, how could we do this from a positive psychology perspective? If we were to underpin politics would be a classic example, education, classic example. But if we think about where technology could take us from a human perspective, yes, I think a lot of technology, artificial intelligence will be really helpful. I just had a intensive care unit head on our diploma, and he was talking about how AI now is quicker and way more accurate at many diagnoses around things than a human is. Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome technology. We want to be using that. If I look at the research now that's coming out about gut microbiome and the link to both physical health and mental health, we have got so much more technology now that can measure that. We've got people, fecal microbial transfer that is literally helping people with depression no longer have depression. We've got technology that can identify individual strains, whether it's from a genetic perspective or how genetics are turned on, that we're learning from technology that can shape people's lives in a good way. Mm-hmm. So I think to your point, will we be doing surgery through robots? We're already doing surgery through robots. Mm-hmm. And it's often more effective. So you've got the world-class expert in neurology or something in the US. You can't fly them to Australia, to your local hospital, but they can dial in with a local surgeon and a robot and probably perform your surgery more accurately than we could otherwise.
Yeah.
So to your point, will we? Yes. And in some ways, I hope we will. Again, if we're putting the wellbeing science behind it, we will do things for the good of people. Any government's job is to look after the well-being of their constituents. That is their ultimate job. If we think about with technology of how we are using technology to support the well-being of our constituents or the people that it's going to, we can do great work. Wales is often a country that's held up around the world from a positive psychology perspective because they only ever undertake any project once they've run it through the Sustainable Development Goals.
Oh, wow. I didn't know.
They literally look at, does it support the culture of our people? Does it support one of the Sustainable Development Goals? Now, projects have been turned down. So there was a massive project of big motorways and infrastructure in Wales that was turned down because once they'd done the analysis, they realised that, yes, it would enable some people to get faster between A and B, but it would be detrimental to the overall well-being of the people impacted. So for me, I suppose when you talk about technology or artificial intelligence or whatever if we were to stop and think about, does this enhance the well-being of people? Then great. Is it taking away the well-being of other people? And again, I was just in Rome at the OECD Wellbeing or Global Forum for Wellbeing, and they were talking about how will artificial intelligence impact jobs for the future. And the worry is your job will be taken for artificial intelligence. And some really lovely discussions around that says, okay, will your job be taken by artificial intelligence? Well, some roles might be, but it will create potentially other roles. And we've seen that over, hundreds of years. Writing of books was considered to be sacrilegious. We can't write it down. That would remove things. Well, it's created a whole range of other things. So we know that may not be the case. But one of the statements that was said that I think is really interesting is artificial intelligence won't take your job, but lack of knowledge of how to use artificial intelligence may make you obsolete, if you like, in your job. So it's not necessarily going to take your whole job. There's other jobs out there around that still might be there. But again, if we're thinking about this from does it enhance the well-being of people overall, then we'll probably use artificial intelligence really beautifully.
I wonder who's in the room making these decisions at the moment.
Well, that is one of the challenges. And I have to say, I get quite inspired when I'm at some of these big global events where there are certain people. And then I get really depressed at other ones when I realize they have no idea about positive psychology and well-being and what their actual job should be.
It's because I feel like in the last little while, and when I say little, it's probably the last 5 years, we've had quite a lot of things land on us from a technology perspective, specifically around AI. That seems to be the thing that's boomed recently. I'm wondering if quantum's going to be the next one. But there is, small groups of people, I would say, that are involved in the decision-making around how these things are designed, right? So do you think that's going to change in the future? Are we going to be, because there's been a lot of mistakes, right? We've seen a lot of catastrophic consequences, especially with our more vulnerable people. I'm assuming we're going to have to start swinging the other way, right? What do you think, Sue?
Well, I would like to think we're going to start swinging the other way. And the challenge for us is we have created a culture in the world, in many countries in the world at least, where being an entrepreneur and being rich and being famous and being a celebrity and being a billionaire is held in high esteem. Many people, I'll be happy when I'm a millionaire. I'll be happy when I run my own business. And that's wonderful. And I love that. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so I love that in some regards. The challenge for it is, to your point, is then there's three people in the room who are like, how can we make as much money as possible out of, let's say, more vulnerable, as in most of us, the overall population? If I then look at, are we going to have to swing the other way? It's starting to happen. So again, at the Global Forum for Wellbeing in Rome a couple of weeks ago, there's a lot of politicians now, useful politicians potentially in the sort of the back end or the operational people who are really wanting to make a difference. To your point, swing the other way. And there were some conversations that I heard that, again, I appreciate I live in my own little bubble, a very positive psychology bubble, and I love my bubble. I invite people to come and join me in my world. It's far better than some of the other worlds out there. But there was this one lovely lady, I can't remember her name, Baroness something or something, and she looks after things to do with child pornography. Oh. And she was talking about how artificial intelligence now has got to the stage where you can order some pornography that you create with the person you want in it.
Oh, no.
Even if it's a child and your child potentially. And I am like, I'm doing what you're doing, sitting there in the room going, oh my God, how is this possible? But it is. And again, her role is, from a legislation perspective, is we have to shut this down. We have to, the people who invented artificial intelligence, we have to figure out how we stop this. But the challenge is the technology can be used for good or for evil. And we've seen that over the years so many times. So yes, there are people who are going, okay, we have to restrict. You know, there's countries now that are talking about restrictions on age as far as social media, etc. And of course, people will find a way around it. You know, when I grew up, there was an age on drinking alcohol and it was meant to be 18. But did I start before 18? Of course I did. There's a way around it. You know, so there's always a way around legislation. And maybe that's not always the answer. But legislation and education together could actually help us so that more people, to your point, are trying to swing the other way. More people now are realizing some of the challenges and putting boundaries on things or saying, no, that's not the way I want to go. But we also have to take responsibility ourselves, because sometimes I see, and I don't blame parents for doing this, I totally understand why, but often parents will use technology as a reward. As in, you get 1 hour of screen time a day and I'm going to take it away from you if you're naughty. So it's like a reward. Well, I don't know, can we make rewards going for a walk or having some fun or running around with each other or human interaction? Because it's a bit like, you know, if I only take you to McDonald's on your birthday and I treat it as a really big thing, and every time when you have a sad day, I then take you to McDonald's to make you feel better, I'm basically saying McDonald's is good.
Yeah.
So how are we also as individuals creating technology as almost like a reward? We're holding it up there for our children, and then we wonder why they turn into teenagers that are then addicted to whatever it is.
Yeah, good points. Now, I want to know what we can do, Sue. So you've covered a range of topics there, so many. I want to know what your top tips are for our listeners to empower themselves. You just mentioned one there for parents. What else can we do to have that mindset around thriving as these technologies, or the current ones, are bombarding us in some areas?
Yeah. So I think there's one overarching thing is look at how your use of technology is supporting or not your well-being. That's the first thing, is try and get some awareness. But then there are lots of small things, like people say to me, I end up scrolling through social media for 45 minutes before I get out of bed. Well, don't sleep with your phone next to your bed. I mean, that's a fairly obvious one. But things like that, like I have a technology-free bedroom. So my bedroom, no technology goes in it. That's the rule. That's my rule. Now, I'm not suggesting other people do that, but there are little things we can do to put the boundaries, whether it's actually using the tech itself, or whether it's, as in the settings in the tech, or whether it's making choices. So, for instance, when you have dinner, is technology present on the dinner table? We know there's a beautiful paper called the iPhone effect that basically found even having a phone upside down on the table between two people during a conversation reduces the quality of that conversation by 30%. So again, are we making choices wisely? If we're in meetings, are we putting technology away if we're face to face? If we're having dinner with our family, are we putting things away? And again, I'll give you an example from a parent perspective. I was in Tassie recently doing some positive parenting sessions, so working with a school, and we did some stuff for the parents. And afterwards, two parents came up to me afterwards and they asked me about technology. How do they stop their 14-year-old being on technology? It was a 3-minute conversation, but during that 3-minute conversation, one of the parents pulls out their phone, looks at it, then comes back to me and whatever you. And I thought, well, you are just role modeling that your phone is more important than this conversation. And if that's what your child sees all day, every day, what do you expect? So I think there's an element of what are we role modeling and what choices are we making? As I say, are we suggesting that we're rewarding around these sorts of things? So my top tips is, first of all, awareness. Awareness is this supporting my well-being or the well-being of others or not? Making conscious choices, whether it's using that technology. As I say, I deliberately unfollow things that are, not helpful for my well-being. I deliberately look at things that are helpful for my well-being. So I subscribe to things that are positive, etc. But also then, as I say, choosing how you spend your time. Technology can be wonderful if you don't want to read a book and you can listen to Audible. I love having mine on 1.5 or 1.75 speed. I can get through things quicker. But still, if I want to stop and pause and learn, I will buy a book and I'll get a pen and I'll read and I'll do it that way. So again, what's the outcome, I suppose, you're trying to achieve?
Things. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be some listeners on the call that are involved in developing technology. What would you say to them around, thinking about when they're designing something either for the workplace or something new, like a new app? If there's people out there sort of developing those sorts of things, what would you say to them in terms of what they're developing and bringing into the future?
I would say, is it supporting people's well-being? And if it's not, stop doing it or change what you're doing. And I know that sounds really simple, but that should be a question we should be asking ourselves over anything we do is, am I lifting people's well-being by what I'm doing? And I'm not just, it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be social, it could be a whole range of things. But am I helping people? If I'm not, go do something else. Sorry, but go do something else.
It's very straightforward. You heard it here first. If it's not helpful, go and find something else to do.
Yeah.
Look, it was wonderful speaking to you today, Sue. I really appreciate it. So many things for us to think about. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure chatting with you and lovely to be invited. Thanks for listening today. Do keep in mind that this is a podcast for informational purposes, and all we're really doing is sharing our opinions on things that matter to us. With that being said, if you liked what you heard and want to continue supporting us, share this podcast with your network to help us grow and bring on even more guests. Until next time, this is Ajari from EmpowerTech, signing off.